time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day to join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
You know, I told them, our guys in the locker room after the last ball game, our seniors haven't beaten these guys, and that's not something we need to allow to happen. And so we'll certainly be focused on Kentucky this week and understand what's at stake.
Man, every play is so critical, and you got to make your opportunities count when you get them, and then just the challenge of playing against the Heisman Trophy winner.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, here on a Friday night, heading into a huge football weekend. What a great weekend it's going to be. The home opener for USC, the Gamecocks 2-0. Gamecock fans are excited about what has happened thus far, and they are very much anticipating a victory tomorrow night in Columbia against the Kentucky Wildcats. Meantime, I'm on the road to Louisville for the Clemson-Louisville game tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Best game in the nation on the docket. A big ACC Atlantic Division affair. The winner will be the front dog to win that division, with still, of course, each having to play Florida State down the road, but it's a wounded Florida State team. So this is huge for Clemson. It's huge for Louisville. What is interesting in both of these games, Kentucky has beaten USC 3 years in a row, so the Gamecocks are trying to snap that streak, and Clemson has beaten Louisville 3 years in a row. And, of course, the Cardinals are trying to beat the Tigers for the first time. Phil Kornbluth in Kentucky, in the Bluegrass State. And we have back in our Columbia studios on Main Street, Willie P., Will Pelagic.
How are you, sir? It's funny. I just recently, over the last couple of days, realized about the corollary between the fact that both the South Carolina schools in FBS are playing both Kentucky schools in FBS. It's a nice coincidental situation there.
Well, this happens sometimes. You've got, later in the year, you've got Florida and Florida State in South Carolina the same weekend. It's happened with Georgia and Georgia Tech before as well. Professor Tom Hayes back at our studios in downtown Columbia as well. So we have got a huge show for you tonight. We'll give you our picks here coming up in a little bit. We'll have the governor and the attorney general, the football filibuster. They will give you their picks as well. Lee Sterling with his Sterling picks. And Alan Smothers is going to join us as well, the bad boy of Sports Talk Radio in the Myrtle Beach PD area. The hot story behind the scenes the last couple of days on the message boards and on the recruiting websites has been on Xavier Thomas. Mm-hmm. Is he or is he not firm with Clemson? Somewhere out there in the Twitter sphere, it kicked up in the last day or so. I think it began with a retweet by Will Muschamp of a tweet by Xavier Thomas, who I think was retweeting something by KJ Henry. This is how it works in today's world. Tweet, retweet, and tweet again. And that got the rumor mill started. Now, there are some people apparently on the South Carolina side who believe that there is a crack in his commitment to Clemson. There are the Clemson people. What's really fun to watch here, guys, is how the insiders work. Right. Because they're trying to protect their turf, and each one is trying to one up the other one in terms of relevant information. And so they all have their contacts. They all either talk to coaches or they talk to the boosters who talk to the coaches and think they have information. I don't know anything. Right. To be honest with you, I'm keeping arm's length on this situation because
fake news.
It's this situation is it could if it opens up, it's going to get very ugly out there with all involved. So I'm just letting it play out. But Alan reported on his show, according to his sources, that things are happening with Xavier Thomas related to his commitment, and we're going to let him tell us about it when he joins us at 45.
Interesting, Corn, as we look at this story, and those who at least don't understand kind of the arc, he said, did Xavier Thomas he'd still have been a South Carolina commit. He would want to have gone to South Carolina if Steve Spurrier was still the head coach. And once the coaching change was made to Will Muschamp, that's when he started the overtures and the commitment to Clemson. And in my mind, while it's interesting to see what Will Muschamp has built, you can't say no to the stability of a school like Clemson and, of course, what they have at that position in a school like Clemson. Now, you could be a superstar at Carolina, or you could play for a national championship at Clemson. I mean, they're on different levels right now. I think it depends on exactly what you want out of your collegiate experience. But the one thing that I do want to stop down on is something kind of that you alluded to, these insiders who are kind of going back on each other. You could do the school that you cover some real jeopardy if you're out there purporting some false information. For example, if you're saying that he is wavering in his commitment to Clemson, you could be ruffling his feathers toward Clemson and maybe push him over the edge. Conversely, if you're saying that he's making overtures towards South Carolina and those things are not even close to being true, then that could even push him further away, even if there was an inkling of him possibly considering the Gamecocks. So I think that there's been some irresponsible reporting here on all sides. He came out and said to a particular Clemson site that he's all in and he's staying with Clemson. But I think that this just kind of shows to you that, we talk a lot about the dark side of the internet. This is the dark side of recruiting, and I don't like it.
But also you can say that the young man would go to the other website and say something else. And it's in the efforts to say, Clemson, really show me how much you love me.
Well, what I was hearing today from talking to Alan and to another contact in the Florence area, these people, they know the family and they know the people around him, and there seems to be a feeling that in some areas he wants more attention in the recruiting world, in recruiting circles, and is kind of stirring it up a little bit. I find it hard to believe. I find it odd because he was just at Clemson last Saturday, and he had pictures taken in his Clemson uniform with some of his teammates from IMG. He's been actively recruiting other football players to Clemson. He's been recruiting Zion Williamson to try to come to Clemson. And then all of a sudden, because he was home in Florence this week, IMG was out because of the hurricane, so he's home in Florence this week. All of a sudden, he has this moment where he wants to possibly decommit from Clemson and go to South Carolina. I'll say this, some of the South Carolina rumor mill has been churning up that he's going to be at the South Carolina game tomorrow night. So if he's there tomorrow night, well, two things. Number one, he'll have to decommit from Clemson because Deb Sweeney has a policy that Clemson commitments cannot visit other schools, and you have to decommit before you can do that. Shaq Smith, you might recall, did that with Clemson a few years ago. He was committed. Then he decided he wanted to take visits. He decommitted, took some visits, and then recommitted to Clemson. So if that's what Xavier Thomas wants to do, according to the policy, the stated policy, this is not some hearsay. This is something that Dabo Sweeney's on the record with. He does not allow his commitments to take other visits.
You are
aware. He tells them that up front. He tells them that up front.
You are aware that policies can be bent, Corn. You realize that.
Not if you want to keep your scholarship.
Policies,
and then we'll see how big a man Dabo really is. Does he dare snatch a scholarship away from a potential great player because he takes a visit somewhere?
As I said
we'll
before,
see what happens.
As I've said before, Corn, these things all have a way of working themselves out in the end. I think that he'll still stay with Clemson. I think that a lot of this is, again, like you said, he's trying to get some attention. He's trying to get some stirring up of the pot, some juice. He just wants attention. All these kids, all they want is attention.
Well, if he wanted attention, congratulations. He certainly is getting it. All right, because he's had, the focus should be on these football teams and these football games.
Of course. Yeah. That's what
but you know what? We're as guilty as the other people because we're sitting here talking about it because
you're the one who brought it up, sir.
Well, it's in my world. This is what I do.
I understand.
But it's two different sports. One is football, which is played with an oblong ball, and the other sport is recruiting. They're two separate sports.
All right, we'll hit a break here on Sports Talk. David Shelton coming up. We'll get a preview of the night in high school football for you. We've got our picks coming up, the football filibuster as well. And as I mentioned, Alan Smothers coming up with his information in the next half hour. Don't go away. All right, we're back. It's a Friday edition of Sports Talk. Let's get into some actual games. Unless David Shelton wants to offer up an opinion on Xavier Thomas. We'll let him do that in just a second if he wants to. Time for the high school football report tonight, brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money even if you've received a quote before. Rates are now more competitive than ever. Get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. All right, I know what you're going to say. You don't care. And so you're not going to offer up any kind of a thought on Xavier Thomas.
Well, Phil, I told you in April, and I tweeted this out.
You do care.
Pay no attention to that verbal commitment. Not that he won't go to Clemson. I'm not saying that. I just know it ain't over, and it's going to drag on because I think Xavier Thomas kind of likes this stuff. You don't see this with Trevor Lawrence. You don't see this with Mike Jones. I think Xavier just kind of. I think he likes the attention.
These guys love drama. It's like they're TNT, David. We love drama. It's all about it.
And I'm not saying that in a negative. I'm not saying that as a negative because I don't know the young man. I've seen him play, and he's a great player and all that. But I just. I didn't think it was good. He's a high-profile guy, and he enjoys being that high-profile. If he didn't, he'd get off Twitter, and he'd say, you know what, I'll show up in January, and y'all will know where I'm going. But he hadn't gone off Twitter. The Carry-On Joiner, he's off Twitter during the football season. No, you can't, he's not tweeting. Now, he may be reading tweets, but he ain't tweeting. I can tell you that because he made an announcement.
He's not pushing the send button.
Right, exactly.
Well,
but
here's
recruiting. You know me and my attitude about recruiting.
Yeah. Here's a tweet from Thomas about 7 hours ago, quoting him off Twitter. If you didn't hear it from me, don't believe it. I'm a 17-year-old kid trying to enjoy life. Leave me be. Thanks.
Yeah. I saw that. I saw that tweet, and you know how you can get left be? You don't answer the phone.
Get off social media.
Text messages. And you get off social media. If David Hood or whoever all these fan sites, if they text and he don't respond, then there's no story. But I'm not saying that's a bad thing, and I like these guys that are friendly with the media and all that. But I do respect guys like to Carry On. I mean, I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask to Carry On, and sometimes I'd like to just tweet him a message and see if he'll answer back. But he's off it until the season's over. So, not that he's going to change his mind or anything, but that's everybody has their own gig, and that's okay. And if Alan Smothers hears rumors and chooses to voice those rumors on the air, that's his business. That's his call. I just had a feeling from the get go this was not going to go away. Now he may end up at Clemson.
Shelton's dropping some bombs, man.
It wouldn't go away.
Shelton's dropping some bombs there, Corn.
It's his style.
Bombs. It's just the way it's the way it is.
I got you.
His nickname. His nickname is B-52 Shelton. I mean, he drops some bombs on people now. That's what he does.
I thought it was still.
All right, let's get to some games, dadgummit. I'm tired of this crap. All right,
I prefer to talk about things you know about. Yeah.
The thing that you obsess about. It's okay.
Yeah. So let's get to some games, David. And I really like this Spring Valley Lexington game tonight. Valley trying to get to 5-0. Lexington is a 3-1 team. Did they lose last week? I think they might have lost last week. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. How you like this matchup tonight?
I think Spring Valley's better, and if they come off their high of whipping Sumter last week, I think Spring Valley's a better team. They'll win the game. I think Lexington got exposed a little bit by North Augusta, who, by the way, is undefeated in hosting or playing at undefeated White Knoll, which is another pretty good game in the Midlands. So, but I like Spring Valley to win that game.
I don't think anybody in the preseason would have said, boy, this is going to be a great matchup of undefeated teams, Socastee and North Myrtle Beach.
Yeah, undefeated might have been a stretch, but both teams were going to be good. I'm not totally shocked that North Myrtle Beach is undefeated. Socastee kind of had a feeling they would be much better because they have kind of a veteran group of guys, especially the quarterback. who's the coach's son and has been doing it for a few years and is makes a lot of plays. That's a really good game, though. I mean, that's two contrasting styles. North Myrtle Beach likes to option you and can throw it. Soccer City prefers to sling it around a little bit. And gosh, for them to both be undefeated this late into the season, it's got to be the first time, maybe the first time it's ever happened, because usually, they've had a couple losses, but these are two teams that are going to go far, and I look for some points to be scored tonight.
No extra hype needed in the grudge match between Porter Goud and Ben Lippen, state title game from a year ago. What say you, Shelton?
Yeah, Porter Goud, I was talking to Bobby Hart now on Bobby Hart's show today, and Porter Goud's 3-0, but they really haven't been a really good team. We don't know how good they are yet offensively, and Ben Lippen has played a much tougher schedule, lost a couple of games. Quarterback Trad Beatty, not sure if he's going to play this week. He didn't play last week, and Hammond beat him. But I like Ben Lippen to win the game. I just think they're a little battle tested. I think Porter Goud's going to win their share of games this year. I don't think they're but I think Hammond, Lawrence Manning, and Ben Lippen may be a little step ahead of Porter Goud right now, but just because of the early season light schedule. But that'll be a good game. Both games last year, they played the regular season and the championship game were very competitive, very close games, so it should be fun.
David Shelton with us here from the High School Sports Report, Charleston Post and Courier, previewing high school football tonight. Ordinarily, most years, when you say Northwestern Spartanburg, you're talking about a pair of undefeated teams and a huge matchup. Not the case this year, yet, two big schools with big followings and big traditions, and it is a game worth noting anytime they get together.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, they could both be 0-4 and people would show up. But it is odd, and I was thinking about this today, that they're both coming into this game with 2 losses this early in the season. That you probably would not have predicted back in August. But Northwestern has been handled twice handily by Burns and South Point, but they won a couple. Spartanburg started 0-2. They seem to be getting on track, especially on the offensive side. They're starting to really put some good balance together. That'll be a great game. That'll be some scoring. And like you said, I mean, there are going to be a lot of people there. And probably the most interesting game of the night is one, between South Point and Buford, Georgia, which is a powerhouse down in the state of Georgia. South Point has in the last couple of years tried to find a out-of-state opponent, a big-time opponent, and they're traveling down. A lot of tradition in these two programs, and we'll have to see how that went, because I think I was reading where Buford's won like 11 state titles, and South Point is obviously going for 4 in a row here and won 5 overall. So I think that'll be a really good measuring stick for South Point. Yeah,
and I was talking to Straight Hair and the coach at South Point earlier this week, and he was saying that team is loaded. One more, David. You give Broome much of a chance with Burns tonight?
A puncher's chance, but not a chance to win. I don't think. I mean, unless Burns has just totally been, living off luck, which I don't think they have. I think they're really good. I just think they're better, deeper than Broome. And the way they're playing defensively right now at Burns is really, really impressive. We've always known Burns to be an offensive type team, and they've always had good defenses and always had good defensive players. But when you think of Burns, you always thought of offense in the past. Well, this team has got enough offense, but they really get after it on defense. So, I give Broome a slight chance, but I just think Burns is better overall.
Where are you tonight?
I will be watching the St. John's Islanders against Hanahan, because it's a very interesting game. Josh Harp at St. John's spent some years at Hanahan as an assistant coach, and now he's a head coach, and he's got a good team, undefeated team, maybe one of the top 2 or 3 teams in Class A. So looking forward to going out there and watching those guys play. They have some pretty good athletes from what I've been told.
All right, we look forward to having you with us once again tonight on the high school scoreboard shows at 10, 10:30, and 11. Thank you, David. Talk to you a little bit later on. That's David Shelton, high school football preview on this Friday edition of Sports Talk from Kentucky and South Carolina. We'll be back. The governors and the attorney generals, the football filibuster. for the most important parts of the Sports Talk week. The football filibuster here on Sports Talk. You know, this was a song that Governor Hodges hoped one day would belong to him as he was walking down the steps of the White House with his lovely bride arm in arm as the 40th president of the United States.
You're really picking at a scab there, an age-old scab there, Corn.
Did you ever want to be president?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, president was not something I was particularly concerned about. I was more concerned about being governor. But, you know, it was certainly I've known most of the presidents, and for that, I understand some of the pressures that come with that job.
Yeah. Well, I know, listen, I mean, what do governors think about becoming when they're finished being governors? They think about being president. I was just wondering if that ever crossed your mind.
Well, let me tell you, president of Boise State. How about that?
There you go. That's tough enough. General Wilson, how are you, sir?
Hey, I'm doing very well. It's great to be back with you.
Yes, sir. You want to be governor one day?
Right now, I'm holding on to the current job I've got. I see how hard it can be.
General Wilson, I'm just concerned about how your wife is treating you after that Missouri beatdown.
Oh, yeah, really?
Well, she's actually sitting across the room right now from me, and I told Governor Hodges last week that I might need to sleep on his couch, but my wife is a much better human being than I am, and she was a very gracious loser last week, so I was allowed to come in the house.
Well, it wasn't like it was a close loss or anything. I mean, your guys dominated, so she didn't have a whole bunch to talk about. All right, so both of you go 3-2, and you're both 7-3. After weeks. So very good start for both. We've got 5 tough ones for you to pick against the spread again this week. Are you ready, gentlemen?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Governor Hodges, let's let you lead since General Wilson has been leading off. We'll let you lead the way this week. And we'll begin with one out of our area, but it could be an interesting game as we see how far Texas might have come and just where Southern Cal is at this stage. And the Trojans laying 15.5 at home against the Longhorns. Governor Hodges.
Well, I don't like Tom Herman because of what he did to South Carolina a few years ago. I think he's arrogant. So I think Southern Cal is going to beat them by 20 points. I'll take Southern Cal.
Oh, my goodness. A beat down on Tom Herman's head. How about you, General?
Herman, they deserve it.
Herman's Hermes. Alan, what do you think?
Well, listen, I certainly think Southern Cal is going to win, and I agree with the governor, but I think that they're going to win less than 15 points. So I'm going to take Texas with the points.
Texas, you got the Longhorns. Okay. To the SEC, guys, LSU at Mississippi State. Mississippi State at home getting 7.5 points. Governor?
Dan Mullen's an underrated coach. I think he's very good, does a lot with not a whole lot of talent. So I'm going to take Mississippi State, keeping this game close.
How about you, General Wilson?
I'm going to go with LSU.
Because?
I just feel like LSU's got this one. I mean, I'm just looking at how they're playing, and I'm feeling good about it.
To win by more than 7.5.
Yeah.
On the road. Stark Vegas with all the cowbells.
That's right.
I think LSU's getting Arden Key back this week. That'll be a help for them against Nick Fitzgerald. All right, to Tennessee at Florida. Always a good early season, high-profile game in the SEC. Couple of SEC East teams. The Gators, unfortunately, had last weekend off. And Tennessee is off to a 2-0 start. The Gators at home favored by 4.5. This was Steve Spurrier's favorite game when he was at Florida and at USC. Governor Hodges, what do you think?
What was Spurrier saying? You can't spell citrus without putting UT in there. I always love that. Yep. I'm going to take, you know what? I'm going to take the Gators. I'm not a big believer in Butch Jones and Tennessee, and I think they'll beat them by a touchdown.
Governor Wilson, I don't like Butch Jones either, but you don't just go into the swamp and expect a rout now.
He's still a general. He's not a governor yet.
Oh, Governor, I'm sorry.
Well, you know, it has Florida by 4.5. The question is, can Tennessee keep it within that? And I'm going to go with Tennessee for the points. I feel like Florida's lost some players. I feel like Tennessee's due, so I'm going to go with Tennessee.
I like it. 3 games, 3 differing opinions. So we're going to have some movement one way or another come this weekend.
I think they're doing that just on purpose.
No, I don't think so. I think they're going with their heart and with their intelligence. Well, maybe not so much intelligence. I think they're going with their heart.
Well, if I win next week, it's because of my intelligence. So.
You would never straddle the aisle, would you? Would you, Corn?
Who's that?
You. Well, you would never straddle the aisle. Like
never. That. Okay, to the locals now. Governor Hodges, you got the Wildcats of Kentucky, 3 wins in a row against your Gamecocks. Gamecocks at home, favored by 6.5. What do you think?
I'm a believer in the Gamecocks. I thought they looked great last week. They're pointing toward Kentucky because of what they've done to them in the past. I think the Gamecocks will win this one by double digits.
No,
so I'll take care.
You got the Gamecocks, Alan. Your Gamecocks too. What do you think?
I'm with the Governor on this one.
I'm
going with Gamecocks.
Can't pull against them, huh?
What do you guys think of them the first 2 weeks?
About Carolina?
Hey, listen, I'm guardedly optimistic. I mean, obviously, we got a long season ahead of us, but I like what I've seen so far. What I really admire the most is the adjustments they've made at halftime and how they really kind of come back. I really enjoyed watching that.
What about you, Governor?
I think they've looked very good. I still think the defense has a little ways to go, and I think he sort of kept the reins off the offense. They probably could have scored a bit more if the games were closer. I'm pleased with where they are. I mean, I'm realistic. I think some people have unrealistic expectations about how many games we're going to win, but I think they're doing really well.
So you don't think they can be 5-0 at the end of September?
I am not reserving national championship tickets yet, but I do believe that they can, win 8 games, maybe 9.
He's just hoping they don't have to go to Shreveport again.
Absolutely, anything but Shreveport. All right, or Birmingham.
Either.
Let's go to Clemson at Louisville, guys. Last game on the list. The Cardinals, maybe the biggest game in their history at home. A chance they think, this will be their last shot with Lamar Jackson, knowing he'll be gone after this season. So they've really got to get it done this year for Bobby Petrino, and they got to get it done this Saturday night against Clemson. They're a 3-point underdog. Tigers favored by 3. They're 2-0, and they get past this one, boys. They may be on their way once again. Governor Hodges.
Yeah, I mean, I think Clemson's going to win this. I watched the game with Louisville and UNC, and I mean, Louisville's defense was not very impressive. Jackson's really good, but can he withstand Clemson's defense? I'm not so sure. So I think Clemson will win this one by more than a field goal.
All right, you got the Tigers to cover, and Alan?
I'm going to go with Clemson also.
Mm-hmm. Because?
Although I hedged on this a little bit because I watched that last play last year at Clemson when he stepped out of bounds 1 yard shy of the first down and blew a chance to win the game. And
well, he was kind of knocked out of bounds. To be honest with you, he was kind of knocked out of bounds.
He wasn't he was knocked out of bounds.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're really hungry this year, and so I originally had Louisville, but I agree with the Governor. I just think Clemson's. I'm going to show them some love. I think they're going to win this one.
Okay, we got time here tonight to go into that part of the football filibuster we call amendments, as we go back to our days in civics and know what an amendment is. Governor Hodges, anything you care to amend?
No, I think I feel pretty good about the choices.
Feel good about it. Okay, General Wilson, anything you care to amend?
I'm going to go ahead and keep the picks I got. This is where we got to separate the men from the boys. So I think there's a breakaway from one of us.
Well, guys, we thank you very much for being with us tonight. It's been a great competition so far to this point in the season. Looks like it's only going to get better. We wish you a lot of luck this weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Governor Jim Hodges and Attorney General Alan Wilson. One, never wanted to be president. I'm not sure about Alan and the governorship one day. He's still a young guy. That might be something down the road.
I was addressing the governor for a follow-up. You were trying to get me to address the attorney general, and that's why you said earlier. When you said he was not a governor yet, I was trying to address the governor about his assessment about Butch Jones.
Oh, okay. Well, you said Governor Wilson. That's why. That's what threw me off.
Sorry, my fault.
That's okay. We forgive you. We'll be back.
Forgive you too.
we're back with you. It is Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We are back, Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network, on a busy Friday night. Phil Kornblut in Kentucky, here to cover Clemson and Louisville. Will Pelagic, sir, will be covering the Gamecocks tomorrow against Kentucky, as will Professor Tom Hayes. They are back in our studios in Columbia. Sports Talk made possible by your local electric cooperative, sponsors of this year's annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. To find out more about what co-ops are doing across the state, visit ecsc.org and save that date, December 9th, for the 2017 Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. We all need professional help, don't we?
Yes.
From time to time?
Yes.
Let's get some as we welcome in Lee Sterling with our Sterling Picks from ParamountSports.com. Hey, he bounced back after a donut in the first week, 2-2 last week, Lee.
Yeah, and we're going to give you another bonus game this week. So we'll get to 4 games, and you guys are involved in 2 of the biggest games in college football this weekend.
This is true. This is true. Really interested to hear your pick on Clemson and Louisville. We'll get to that in a minute. Tell folks where to go to get all your good information over the weekend.
Well, we started off the season for my paid subscription subscribers for we won all 3 weeks. So you want to get involved. Last week we went 8-4. We won last night. We've hit every 30 and 35 unit play, which are our higher unit plays this year. We'll have another 30 and 35 unit play on Saturday and Sunday. You want to get involved, go to ParamountSports.com. Use coupon code SAVE100. Just $297 to get you every game for 3 weeks. My executive phone service, ParamountSports.com.
Okay, let's begin with Florida and Tennessee. Going to play this game in Gainesville. The Gators have, 9 suspended players for this game. The fan base, they've got to have their minds on cleaning up after the hurricane and all of that. You wonder what kind of crowd will be there and what the atmosphere is going to be like in Gainesville.
I still think it's going to be pretty electric. The rivalry's always been one of the most heated rivalries, and the problem here for Florida is no Scarlett at running back and no Callaway at receiver. So I think they're going to have to stay conservative, but that may not be such a bad thing. Tennessee's defense against Georgia Tech looked confused. They look significantly weaker than last year. They gave up over 500 rushing yards in that game. And here's an interesting stat. The teams that has run the ball better in this series has gained more yards in the game, has won 14 of the last 15 games. I think Florida will run for more yards. It's not going to be pretty. Whoever loses this game, whichever coach is certainly on the hot seat and might get let go by the end of the season. I like Florida. It won't be pretty, like I said, but they'll win and cover 23-17.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's do the NFL game you've got on here before we get to USC Clemson. So you got the Panthers laying 7 at home against Buffalo.
Yeah, and this line's shooting up. I'm seeing some places 7.5 to 8 points here. The Panthers are going to host the Saints next week. So, they might be looking ahead a little bit. Sean McDermott, Buffalo coach, he'll be ready to make his return here in this game. And he's got to know the playbook here. Having coached there, he knows really what Mike Shula is looking to accomplish. He knows those players on the offense. And I don't think Cam Newton's 100% here. I think that's a problem. And Buffalo's just playing conservative. They're going to run the ball with LaShawn McCoy and just try to play some decent defense. I think Carolina wins the game 23-20, but Buffalo covers.
All right, now let's go to the big college games. Let's go with South Carolina, Kentucky first, home opener for the Gamecocks. Gamecock fans are sky high for this one. Gamecocks are the home favorite here, laying 7 against a team that's beaten them 3 years in a row.
Yeah, and I think this is the most improved team right now in the SEC. Look at the last 4 games in the series. It's been pretty tight. 7-7, 4 and 7 points have been the margin here. They're playing sound ball, 2-0 straight up, +4 in turnover ratio, and 2 kickoff returns for touchdowns. Now, usually it's very rare that you'll see a team, unless they're an Alabama, a team that wins a national title or in the top 4 or 5, that will end the season +15 to +20 in turnover margin. So Some of those bounces might go against the South Carolina team. Very rarely back Kentucky as a favorite, but as a dog, that's when they seem to play their best ball. Kentucky can do two things as a dog that I look for if you want to consider backing a dog. They run the ball and they stop the run. I think South Carolina is going to win the game. They're going to exact that revenge, 28-24, but I'm going to take the 7 points of Kentucky.
All right.
Yep.
All right. Well, you know what? The Gamecock fans, what do they care about the money? They just want the W.
Right.
And
the W.
We go to Clemson and Louisville and I don't know. This has got, you got the great offense of Louisville, the great defense of Clemson, a Clemson offense which is still kind of but a Louisville defense has given up 31 points per game. So Clemson is favored by 3 here to make it 4 in a row over Louisville. How do you see it?
Yeah, and this is what we've been waiting for. I think this is the most exciting matchup of an offense and a defense so far in college football. Lamar Jackson, I mean, I don't care who you're playing, as long as they're a Division I team, putting up 700 yards in total offense on a team, that shows you what he can do. If he wins this game, he's going to probably win the Heisman again. But the problem here, and last year's game was an instant classic, he's going to have to face a Clemson defensive front that I think is second to none. They did a number on an Auburn offense that has a pretty good quarterback and he's mobile. They're not going to put 11 sacks on Lamar Jackson, but they might get 4 or 5. That might be enough. The problem here for Louisville, suspect D. You talked about that. And this is the only game I watched twice. I watched the tape. Now, I know defense is about emotion and they'll play much better than last week, but you watch that tape against North Carolina, the Louisville defense, they don't have playmakers anymore. Their cornerback play is horrific, and they have trouble tackling in space here. Clemson is still the class of the ACC. Late 3, Clemson Tigers 31, Louisville 23.
Ooh!
Yeah.
And your game of the week, Ole Miss, unbeaten. California, unbeaten out there.
Yeah, should be a shootout. You want to get this game, just call right now, 800-400-9741. We'll give you this game on me. Like I said, if you want to get involved with our September shootout, use coupon code SAVE100, ParamountSports.com.
Okay, Lee, good luck to you. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Lee Sterling, our Sterling Picks.
So he likes
Paramount
both the locals.
Sports. He does. So what do we have for our picks this week? We went over the standings last night. So Southern Cal and Texas, everybody's taking Southern Cal except for the big kahuna, Bobby Harton down in Charleston. He likes Texas. Mississippi State, LSU, looks like most of us are taking Mississippi State.
Yep.
In that one, Kev Cohen is taking LSU. Pro's taking LSU. Tennessee at Florida. Looks like it's kind of split here. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of a split cast here between those two. USC and everybody's picking the Gamecocks and laying the points against Kentucky
because it's going to be a blowout, Corn.
Well, that's what I think. I think they win by a couple of touches. Clemson and Louisville. Willie the P. Well, you're not the only one. You and Pro, I'm sorry. You two are taking the Cards. Everybody else is taking Clemson.
Sorry, Charlie.
Well, you want to explain yourself very quickly to a statewide audience that's hating you more by the day?
Lamar Jackson. That's my explanation. I don't need another explanation other than Lamar Jackson.
I wanted to ask Lee.
Do you? Well, hang on a second. Well, do you know the name Christian Wilkins?
I know the name Christian.
Do you know the name Dexter Lawrence?
I'm aware
Do
of
you know Austin Bryant?
I know all of them.
Do you know Trey Lamar? Do you know Dorian O'Daniel?
I'm just going to do the pose for everybody in here on our Google Play or our Google Hangout. I'll do the Heisman pose.
Where's the 31 points coming from?
I just want to know I just want to know how many points is Clemson
Louisville gives up 31 points. Clemson's going to score.
I don't know how
They're
many
going to
points.
score.
I don't know if
They're going to score enough.
Points.
They're going to score plenty. We'll be back.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
All right, it's hour number 2 of Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Good to have you with us as we head into another football weekend here on Sports Talk. And got recruiting coming up for you here in just a few minutes. In fact, let's kick off the recruiting coverage by welcoming into Sports Talk the bad boy of Sports Talk Radio in the PD and in the Grand Strand. He is Alan Smothers, who has been following the Xavier Thomas story from his perch because he's right there in Florence, and Xavier being from Florence, a lot of contacts, a lot of people that he knows. Alan does, who could fill him in on things surrounding this much hyped football player. So, bad boy, what can you tell us about what you know?
Well, I have reported, and again, I reported yesterday morning, first off, because I was told on Wednesday night that Xavier Thomas was, in fact, going to reopen his recruiting. Now, what that means is anybody's guess. It does not mean that he's changing his decision from Clemson to South Carolina or any other college for that matter. It's just that he thinks that he committed too early. That is the word that I get from people very close to his family. I will say that I have not spoken to Xavier directly, but I've spoken to people that are very close to his family and close to both of the coaching staffs. And if you'll know that earlier today, the Tiger Illustrated actually reported that there was some fire to the smoke that started on the internet late on Wednesday, but that fire had been extinguished, that he was still firmly committed to Clemson, was planning on going to the Gamecock football game versus Kentucky tomorrow at Williams-Brice Stadium, but that too has changed. So says the reports. Now, I don't know that I believe Tiger Illustrated. They're talking to a different fan base than I talk to on a daily basis. But if he shows up at the Gamecock football game tomorrow, which I think that he will, on for the first of the week. But I was told that, be it official or unofficial, the recruitment of Xavier Thomas is not over by any stretch of the imagination.
From the people you've talked to, and you mentioned this a moment ago, but I mean, is it simply an attention-seeking opportunity for him, or does he have some genuine concerns about Clemson? Does this go back to when he was growing up, being a Gamecock fan and the Gamecocks' good start impressing him? What does this go back to?
Well, I can't speak to any of that specifically, but I can tell you that growing up, this early start has impressed him. But I don't know that there's any issues with Clemson whatsoever. I've not been told that he has any problems with Clemson people. And as I said, he may end up going to Clemson. He may decide, late next week to end all speculation about this. I think he's tried to in the past, but because he committed so early that he just thinks that, there is some, something to the fact that he's looking for some attention. He committed real early. Some of his financial agreement papers with the university, Clemson University, but believe me, those mean nothing. All that does is set him up so he can enroll early, which he still plans to do, and he may still end up at Clemson, but I think he just wants to see what might still be out there for him, and I promise you the coaches from the other schools haven't given up hope yet.
And we'll let you go after this because you have a game to call. Is he still in Florence tonight, as far as you know, or is he going back to IMG?
As far as I know, he's still in Florence right now. Does not have to be back at IMG until Monday. School obviously was out all week last week because of the hurricane. But as far as I know, he's still in Florida.
So, Alan, he could technically still go to the Gamecock game if that's still a possibility.
And I think he will. That just from all the people I've talked to, they believe he'll be there tomorrow. And I believe the people that I'm talking to who are very tight with him, that I think he will be at the Gamecock game. What that means, I can't tell you. Again, that could mean something or it could mean absolutely nothing. But I do know that there probably will be an announcement over the weekend by Monday that he is reopening the recruitment and looking at what other coaches have to say to him in the next few weeks.
Is this why people call you the bad boy?
It's exactly why they call me the bad boy. I say things that don't make a lot of people happy, but I'm just all I do is call a spade a spade. I say things that I hear and believe are the truth.
Well, you're going to call a brave, and a chief coming up here in a little bit, right?
I am. In fact, I am here at North Myrtle Beach, and they're getting ready to do the national anthem as we speak. People are rising to honor the colors here as the Chiefs and the Braves will do battle on the reservation on the north end of the Grand Strand.
All right. Well, we'll let you go so you don't disrupt that and people look at you cross-eyed. Thank you, exactly. Alan Smothers, the bad boy of Sports Talk Radio in the Grand Strand of the PD. So that's Alan's report. You heard him. Mm-hmm. You heard what he believes. And so we shall see.
Do you need me to go around 5 points looking for Xavier Thomas now? Tonight?
Well, he better not be in 5 points. He's only 17 years old.
I want to see Allen walk into the SO Club. That's what I want to see.
But get this. If that happens, okay, and, of course, the focus should be on the football game, but you know how people are. You'll have Xavier Thomas and Zion Williamson in the stadium at the same time in South Carolina tomorrow night. And I'm not sure the stadium can handle that.
There's plenty of uncommitted people here also going to be here. There's plenty of other guys who are going to be in Columbia this weekend. They're calling it one of the biggest recruiting weekends that South Carolina's had in a long, long time.
That's not. That's overstated. That's not. They've had bigger weekends back. Marcus Lattimore was visiting. Jadeveon Clowney was visiting. That's a good weekend, okay? Let's don't get crazy here.
I don't say it was the biggest. I said it's one of the biggest they've had in a long time is what they've said.
Well, as big as one they had last year. I mean, they've got some good players coming in. They've got their commitments, a lot of their commitments coming in. They've got a few of their top targets coming in. Let me tell you about Zion Williamson as I get into the recruiting. He's going to be there as we projected earlier this week. The way this thing was playing out, you could see that it was going to work out that he would go to Clemson last weekend for the game, USC this weekend for the game, and not take official visits to either, which was their plan from the beginning from talking to his stepdad, Lee Anderson. USC was in the home last night, and Lee tells us the visit with Frank Martin and all the assistant coaches went great. The message was, they reached the Final Four last season. Come help them get to that next level. Head coaches from Kansas, Kentucky, UCLA, also in this week. 2 Duke assistants met with Williamson at the school yesterday. Now, Anderson is expecting Mike Krzyzewski to visit at some point. North Carolina coach Roy Williams is expected on Sunday. 4 official visits supposedly for Williamson, Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, UCLA. But though Anderson told me, to his knowledge, nothing is absolute with those visits and dates, and there could be some changes. As for tomorrow, Anderson said the plan is to meet with some of the academic people at USC as well as the support group around the basketball program. It's possible Williamson will meet with the university president as well as he did last week at Clemson. The visit at Clemson went very well, and they got a chance to further explore the academic opportunities as well as learn more about the basketball program.
We'll see how good
Anderson
Dr. P
said
is
he's not aware. I beg your pardon?
We'll see how good Dr. P is at recruiting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Anderson said he's not aware of an in-home visit planned with Clemson coach Brad Brownell at this point. As for the idea of Williamson skipping college altogether, which I posed to him last night, since he's likely a one-and-done player playing professionally somewhere next year before entering the draft, Anderson admitted the subject had been broached but doesn't have a lot of legs. Williamson's mother's a teacher. Anderson himself's a former college basketball player, so they appreciate what the college experience of even for a year would mean to their son. No timetable has been set for Williamson to make his decision. And right now, it's not even certain he'll sign in November. We'll be right back. Coming up in a moment, we're going to hunt down some birdies and some bogeys as the playoffs for the PGA Tour continue. The season winding down. George Bryan III will join us from up in Chicago. Let me wrap up the recruiting report. We were talking about Zion Williamson, some other notes for you football-wise. As we mentioned earlier in the show, defensive tackle. Maybe we didn't mention this. Defensive tackle Dantrell Barkley of Independence Junior College in Kansas, decommitted from USC today. Not expected, had not heard any rumblings that this was going to happen, but it did. Running back Harold Joyner of Mountain Brook, Alabama, was at Clemson last Saturday night. Tigers have not yet offered. He would like one, and they would be one of his top teams if they were to offer. So right now, LSU, Alabama, Michigan State, Southern Cal, and UCLA are his top schools. Officials to LSU October 13th and UCLA October 20th. He's going to Alabama for their game this weekend. The 2019 defensive end commitment for USC, Rodriguez Fitton from Atlanta, 6'3", 220. His coach, Derek Avery, tells us he's a kid that just loves football, lives it, breathes it 24 hours a day. He's the leader on defense. He's his best player on defense. They move him all around. Defensive end, in the middle, stand him up. He makes plays all over the field. They went to South Carolina in February and in April, and Fitton just really liked South Carolina, built a relationship with the coaching staff, and the coach expects him to hang tough with it, though he does believe at some point Georgia will make a run at him. South Point defensive back Stephen Gilmore Jr. told Scout.com he may now postpone his announcement plan for Sunday. He's had a short list of USC, North Carolina, Georgia, and Louisville, but USC's informed him they don't have room. USC offered defensive back Ken Montgomery of Tampa, according to 24/7 Sports, currently committed to UCLA. Ben Lippen linebacker Kyle Wright committed to Temple. Now, some of the targets for USC expected at tomorrow night's game include linebacker Channing Tindall of Spring Valley, linebacker Dax Holyfield of Shelby, North Carolina, offensive lineman Javon Gwynn of Charlotte, offensive lineman Dylan Wanham of Tucker, Georgia, defensive back Bryce Thompson of Dutch Fork, tight end Elijah McAllister of Rumson, New Jersey, defensive back J.C. Horn of Alpharetta, Georgia, and defensive lineman Rick Sandage of Concord, North Carolina. Also, 2019 defensive back Akil Pauling of Ben Lippen, wide receiver Jalen McCullough of Powder Springs, Georgia, and defensive back Jalen Perry of Decula, Georgia, are expected to be there. USC will have a basketball official visit this weekend. 6'7" Jericho Helms of St. Louis. He visited NC State last weekend. By the way, Manny Bates committed to NC State today. And Clemson's in the Final Five with point guard Anthony Nelson of South Kent, Connecticut. They offered him this week. The others are Dayton, Seton Hall, West Virginia, and Minnesota. You know, if that recruiting report was my golf game, George Bryan, that was a 66 right there. That was 6 under par as I see it.
Stay on course record pace, and this is the perfect time of year to do it. It gives your imagination. There's plenty of room on the golf course because everybody loves football so much for your imagination to continue to grow. So, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the fall, and we talk about it all the time. And so, Phil, I know we're going to talk pro golf, but I do always, you know, I've got a favoritism towards junior golf, but tonight, ladies golf. So South Carolina will take the USGA state team to New Mexico, and congratulations to Lee Venable and Dawn Woodward because those two, along with my daughter Mary Chandler Bryan, will represent South Carolina at the USGA state team.
Very
and
nice.
We'll say more on that later. That's New Mexico. More on that in a couple of weeks. So
yeah,
I was at Conway Farms today, and no matter what it looks like on TV, and I know everybody thinks it's easy, I promise it's not. The golf course is fairly hard. These guys are good, and they just make it look so easy.
Well, I mean, Mark Leishman, I mean, come on, 62, 64. He's 16 under par after 2 rounds. I mean, where's he? How much lower is he going to go?
Well, and this is just what happens when the stakes are high, the safety's off. You got perfect weather in Chi-Town, Chicago, and this is actually Lake Forest is a little bit outside of Chicago. And this golf course is just fun. And then he hits it not just extremely solid, straight, but also very, very long, and his putting touch is spectacular. He makes the game look, as does Jason Day and Ricky Fowler. They're making it look way easier than it really is. I promise. I'm watching up close, and it's not that easy. Billy Horschel, former FedEx Cup winner, I watched him all day long today. Tony Finau, he is phenomenal. These guys shot 3 over and 1 over on the same course. This guy, Leishman, shot 7 under today. 7 under par is incredible. These guys are just good. Just good. Don't know. I wish I could answer that question. I tell you what, it's a lot of fun watching the ride, though, and they can send it.
You know, it's interesting. Day has had quite a last couple of weeks. You know, he was in the top 10 of the PGA, top 10 also in the Northern Trust. Fell off a little bit in the Dell Championship, but I tell you what, he's stalking the leaderboard now. He's getting himself back to form. What are you seeing out of him?
He looks great, and you know, he has fought off. He's had some physical problems, but I tell you what, this guy's got a great attitude. I've watched him practice, listen to him in around the practice area, the locker room, and he's right. And nothing would surprise me that he ended up doing. I tell you what, it was kind of fun on Monday. They call him JT, but he won a couple weeks ago. Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth teed it up in a Monday afternoon practice round against Wesley. And the new Spaniard, the phenom I'm drawing. Oh my gosh,
John Rahm.
John
Rahm, yeah.
And he is
Rahm. Yeah.
It was an unbelievable match. Birdies, multiple birdies on every hole.
He's having a hole-in-one today. Did Jason Day?
Hey, Jason Day now is. Yeah, you're right. He's got it on Purina, but also Ricky Fowler. He's got it sitting right there on the same thing. There's a young man named Patrick Cantley. He lit it up today, and I'm just looking at the leaderboard, and all of the top 10 shot 5, 6 under. Well, there were a couple exceptions, but golf course is perfect. Greens are like just marble fast and smooth too.
Now, George, from this tournament, what is it? The top 30 move on to the championship tournament. Is that correct?
Top 30, yes, and it's going to be tight. I'm real interested. I'd like to push screensaver on these set. I'd like to DVR it and see how accurate these computer projections will be, and looks pretty crazy right now. 18, for example, today was a reachable par 5, and 17 is unbelievably difficult. So they've got some scoring holes coming down the stretch. I'm guessing it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Finau hit 6-iron into 18. Billy Horschel 5-iron. And if you look at the green, if you look at the telecast, can't really see what that green's about. But I'll guarantee you it's worth sitting there and watching live Sunday afternoon. It will be fun.
Well, Wesley improved 5 shots today, 76-71. So if he can improve 5 shots tomorrow, that will help his position tremendously.
Yeah, he's probably going to have to shoot 61 twice to have any. And I tell you, it's crazy. He's closer than the score indicates.
Yeah.
There's a fine line between absolutely perfect and just on the wrong side of disaster. And so he looks good. His score's just not like like those guys at the top of the leaderboard. But he's in good spirits. I can guarantee he's in good spirits.
Well, enjoy the weekend in Chicago, man. A great place to be. Hope the golf is good for you, and we'll talk to you next week.
See him high, but shoot him low.
You got it. George Bryan III, GB3, with us here on Sports Talk. Jordan Spieth's at 7 under. There's no cut in this tournament, of course. Kyle Stanley's at 4 under. Got a lot of South Carolinians in good shape on the leaderboard. Back in a moment. All right. All right, we're back. Ordinarily, we'd have Monty Dutton with us, the full Monty on NASCAR, but he is out covering a high school football game tonight, so we will give him a pass as we go into the first weekend of the playoffs for NASCAR. Seems like everybody wants to have playoffs these days. Golf needs to have a playoff. NASCAR feels like it needs to have a playoff.
They're all just,
I was listening.
They're all just trying to give ratings to their failing businesses, Corn. That's all.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I don't disagree. I was listening to NASCAR radio on my way into Kentucky a good bit today because I want to familiarize myself with what everybody's talking about. And, of course, there's a Twitter war going on between Kyle Busch and Brad Keselowski over Toyota. Yeah, I mean, it's the Toyota thing. Keselowski, who drives a Ford, Busch, who drives a Toyota, and, Keselowski's complaining that NASCAR has allowed Toyota to have a body style and things, and has allowed Toyota to move way ahead of the other two models in racing. And Kyle Busch is like, wah, cry me a river sort of thing. And so they've been going back and forth.
I literally have to restrain myself on some of these things. I'm not even gonna get to it. I won't get into it.
There are
only so many ways. There's only so many ways you can make a car turn left, Corn. That's all I have to say.
Well, I see there you're showing your ignorance about NASCAR.
I'm kidding. I'm not knowing my ignorance. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean there are obviously there are things that go into setting up a car that makes one car go faster than the other, and there's the nerve, the guile of the driver behind the wheel. But what I was going to say was the other thing is that, they're talking about more cutbacks in NASCAR to save money. Things like for next year, even fewer tires available to the teams, less and less R&D, not going to the wind tunnel, anything that they can come up with to cut to help the team save money. Because as Dave Moody, the host on the NASCAR show, was saying, it's not like it was many years ago. There's not as much money coming in, and there's a lot more money going out, and teams have got to figure out a way, and NASCAR's got to figure out a way to make the money flow better.
Wow, just have the drivers go to the pit and change their own tires.
Yeah. Now, they are qualifying in Chicago as we speak. They're moving into the final round right now, the 12 drivers who made it into the final round. So that's going on right now. So we'll tell you how that turns out once it is done. Other football tomorrow around the state of South Carolina besides the USC and Clemson games. Coastal Carolina back in action, 1-0 after a week off, playing at UAB, the resurrected UAB program. So maybe the Shots can get off to a 2-0 start. South Carolina State, which was off last week, will be hosting Johnson C. Smith. Furman, tough luck Furman team going to NC State. The Citadel trying to go to 3-0, playing at East Tennessee State tomorrow. Charleston Southern will be at Elon after being off last week because of the hurricane. It's Campbell at Presbyterian. Blue Hose looking for their first win. Newberry the same, home to Virginia Lynchburg. Benedict hosting Lane tomorrow. North Greenville, which is 1-1, playing at Albany State. And Limestone, coming off an overtime win over Benedict, will be hosting Tusculum. That is the schedule around the state. Now, as far as the Gamecocks and Tigers go, and we've made our picks. We've talked about how who we think will win. And, I mean, these are two big games early in the season for both. I think a win will say a lot about both teams and will do wonders for, well, certainly for South Carolina. Every win is a confidence boost. Clemson is not short in confidence despite the turnover in personnel. This is still a very confident Clemson team. But what it will do, a win for Clemson with how their schedule looks the rest of the way. This is the big hurdle to get over, really, until they get to Florida State late in the year. Maybe you could say Virginia Tech in there. But they get past this one tomorrow night, they're looking pretty. And then the Gamecocks, they win tomorrow night. Certainly, they're looking at 4-0 when they go out to College Station with a chance to open up 5-0 in September.
See, the thing about Clemson is that I think they have to win by any means necessary. They don't necessarily have to put up any style points because you're going on the road. You're playing against the Heisman Trophy winner. You're going into a buzzsaw. You get out of there with a win by any means necessary, it's going to completely make you look as good as anything would. South Carolina needs to win this game convincingly against Kentucky, in my mind. Like, they need to win by 10 or more for me to be confident in that South Carolina has taken this next step and they are going to be a contender for the East. If they and we see some inconsistency with the offense or things on the back end or the defense regresses and they eke out, a 2 or 3 point victory, then I'm not convinced that they can go to A&M and win. I'm not convinced that they can go to Tennessee and win. But if they show the kind of mettle that I think they're capable of, and I'm not sitting here and say they have to blow them out, but if they win convincingly against Kentucky, I'm a believer in South Carolina.
Well, what I really want to see is them get stubborn with the running game. A lot of times teams have low yardage on running games because guys
give up.
They get stubborn. They don't get stubborn. I think with those two big backs, and then you add Turner in there, Corn, they get a lead. They can serve up a battering ram from the middle of the third quarter into the fourth quarter with those two big backs. And as I said, I was certainly surprised. I knew Tyson Williams. He didn't even show it in the spring game. He just ran straight ahead. But the other night he showed some wiggle with that big girth he has. So they've got two real good backs that if they get that running game going, they can be very, very dangerous with the play action.
Well, I think South Carolina has to come out and establish the running game and show that they can run the football. Now, Kentucky will be without a key defensive player in their linebacker, Jones, so that could work in South Carolina's favor to some degree. Running the football. Teams have not run the ball at all against Kentucky this year. Southern Miss rushed for 55 yards. Eastern Kentucky rushed for 62 yards. I dare say South Carolina is better than both of those teams and should be able to have a little bit more success with their offensive line and those running backs. And like you're saying, if they have some success running the football, that's going to make Bentley, and he thrives off play action, that's going to make him even more successful. So I look for that to happen. That's why I've got the Gamecocks covering in winning this game tomorrow night and moving on to 3-0. And Louisiana Tech should be a walkover for them at home to get to 4-0. In Texas A&M, will still having quarterback issues. They're going to have to start the freshman out there on Saturday, Kelly Mond, because
Starkle.
Was it Starkle or what's the other player, the transfer? Jake
Starkle, that's his name.
No. The other one, the other player is hurt. The other quarterback.
They got like three of them. So
yeah, it's the other one who was
Jake Hubenak. He's not the transfer. He's the incumbent.
Okay. Yeah. Well, he's hurt. Yeah, it looks like Kelly Mond's going to have to get the start again.
And Starkle's the one who's hurt. And the thing about Mond is it goes back to what A&M has had over the course of the last couple of guys. I've got one guy who they basically are confident who can throw. They got another guy who's basically a running threat, and that's what Mond is. And we saw him struggling against UCLA in that second half. I just, in my mind, A&M to me is a fraud. I know that going down there is a tough trip for anybody. I was talking to Ray Tanner about this. It's a tad longer than the trip to Missouri by about 10 minutes in the air. In my mind, I think this is a game that if South Carolina went down and beat Missouri, they should be able to go down and beat A&M.
Well, Texas A&M is the picture of how things can change. This is a team that in consecutive years, I think, went into the same state, didn't they, Corn, and took the top quarterback out of Arizona, and all of them have left the end. And suddenly it almost seemed that when those quarterbacks left, not only did their talent leave, but I think a lot of morale of that football team was sucked dry.
And I do want to say something about Clemson. I'm not saying they cannot win. If there's any defense in the country that can stop them,
don't back off now.
Tomorrow, it's them. I just don't know if there is one that can stop Lamar Jackson tomorrow, and I don't think Clemson can score enough.
Quack, 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 quack.
That's my chicken impersonation.
I'm not a chicken. I'm the lone dog out here. You're all the ones who are homering up and picking Clemson.
Remember, I picked Louisville too.
Oh, you did?
Yes,
okay.
I did.
Then join me on the island.
Tiger's the better team. Talking about the Cleveland Indians, who've won 22 in a row, or not even my red-hot Yankees. How about little preseason baseball action for USC and Clemson? Both began fall camps yesterday, and we'll be having, I think, scrimmages. I know USC's having them, and I think Clemson is as well over the weekend, open to the public. Both head coaches, Mark Kingston and Monty Lee, met with the media for previews yesterday. So here's Mark Kingston, USC's first-year head coach, sounding like somebody who's got to learn a lot about his players this fall.
We spent a lot of time in our skill groups, started to get a feel for what we have from a talent standpoint, started to get a feel for the tools of our players. The great thing now that we start scrimmages and games are that we start to see how the pieces fit together. Who can really hit. We've seen who can hit off the machine and BP. Now it's time to see who can really hit when there's a pitcher out there trying to get him out. We can see which pitchers can make pitches, get out of jams. We can start to see who can make the great play on defense, who's going to be consistent on defense. So to this point, I'm very pleased with what I've seen from a talent standpoint. Now it's a matter of getting them on the field, starting to teach them how we want to do bunt defense, how we do cuts and relays, how we go about preparing for a game offensively. Just a lot of great things, and I'm really excited. I think as a coach, our biggest role is as a teacher. So now we get to teach these guys as a group what our expectations are and where we think this thing needs to go. So had an introduction for the guys last night. We met actually in this room and just talked about our approach. And so I'm really anxious to get on the field today with these guys and put it all into action. So I just think they're very anxious to get better. That's the one thing I've been very pleased with. I think collectively and individually, they're all very anxious to get better. They've asked good questions. When we've asked them to do something, they've gone overboard trying to do it. So I've been very pleased with their approach and their desire to try to learn and to understand that we all want to take that next step.
A fall camp simply because of the newness here.
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference for me is the numbers. You know, our roster, the numbers are higher than I've ever dealt with in a fall setting. So that's something that we're working through. This is my third time taking over a program as the head coach, so I'm familiar with what we need to be looking for, what pieces of the puzzle we need to try to figure out sooner rather than later. But from the standpoint of is there anything new? Not really. I think because this is my third opportunity doing this, we kind of know what the approach needs to be, what we need to figure out. We need to figure out exactly how are the pieces going to fit together, where are we set, and where does there need to be improvement. To me, that's the biggest thing, is we need to figure out what is it at a level that can help us have the success we want to have, and what areas need improvement. And sometimes that comes from development. Sometimes that comes from recruiting. Those are all the things, you know, at this point in the process, there's a lot for me as the head coach and our staff to figure out what needs to be improved, what is solid.
That's Mark Kingston, the new head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. He's a pretty nice man too. I would say that he has kind of a handle on this, but even he said that this was more people than he'd seen for a fall baseball press conference, and so he's seeing very, very much how passionate the fan bases are in the Palmetto State when it comes to college baseball. Conversely, for Clemson, they're going to bring in a lot of new faces. They had 9 guys drafted last year, so they'll be relying a lot on their recruiting class, which Monty Lee says promotes versatility.
Well, it's a group of guys that have a tremendous work ethic. That's one of the things that has stood out to me here in the first 3 weeks that we've been back in school. Been doing a lot of conditioning, weight training, some skill work, individual skill instruction. It's a group that's very serious about showing up every day and working very, very hard. So there's a number of guys, and, it's always hard to go down that list in your mind. But Kier Meredith.
You them drafted, right?
Yeah. A few guys drafted, and Kier Meredith, Sam Weatherly, Spencer Strider on the pitching end. Weatherly has a chance, I think a legitimate chance to be a two-way player. Really swings the bat well. He's got a nice left-handed swing. He's got some speed. Has the ability to play all 3 outfield positions and maybe even some first base. Along with he's left-handed and pitches in the low 90s from the left side. Just an unbelievable athlete. Spencer Strider's got a really good arm. Has been up into the mid-90s. Kier Meredith, speedster, left-handed bat, can really run. One of the top 5 fastest players in last year's draft class. So, just a young man that has some tools and has a really nice skill set. There's a lot of names to go through, but the one thing that I will say just on the position player end is the one thing that's impressed me was how many guys can play multiple positions. It was one thing that was a big stress, a big point of emphasis for us in recruiting is we've got to be able to bring in guys that have versatility, that can catch and throw the baseball at a high level, that can run, and that can play multiple spots. And quite a few of these guys can do that.
Needing to protect Seth a little bit, how important was it to get Samurai back? And
well, our best recruit was Chris Williams. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He was our best signee in this class. Just so excited to have Chris back. I know that he had an opportunity to sign a professional contract. Even there at the end, the Rays were willing to give him a pretty significant amount of money. You just don't see that many catchers that hit for power and can hit like that. But I don't think people realize just how good a player Chris Williams is. I know I do. When we lost him, you really realize, how important a piece of the puzzle he was for our team. But, Chris is not only a frontline catcher and a middle of the order hitter. This is a guy that can play a lot of different places too. Chris is underappreciated as an athlete. He's extremely athletic. So we're just happy to have Chris back. It's a guy that started for us for 2 years. So be able to get a guy that'll be in his 3rd year as a starter and a middle of the order threat, a guy that could hit behind Seth if we choose to do that and give Seth a little protection. It's great to have Chris Williams.
That is the voice of Monty Lee. And as you said, Corn, yesterday, it's always good when you're Clemson when you can return some beer.
Yes. Bring me the beer. One more little recruiting item I wanted to pass along because I just saw this. Channing Tindall, Spring Valley linebacker, did an interview with one of the Rivals national guys. Now he plans to take all 5 of his official visits.
And why wouldn't
he? Yeah, originally he was just going to do 2. Now he's going to take all 5 and not make a decision until December, take his official visits in November. Those visits, USC, Auburn, Georgia, Florida, and Florida State, those are his 5 schools right now. So this thing continues to play out. We've got high school football, of course, going on all over the state. I think we've got good weather tonight for the most part.
In the 70s tonight, Corn.
Yeah, very comfortable. So join us tonight for the high school scoreboards across the state on South Carolina Radio Network. We'll have scores for you at 10, 10:30, and 11 o'clock. 5-minute scoreboard updates. We bring you more scores in 5 minutes than other people do in 2 hours, which is a bit of an exaggeration, but it sounds good.
It's a nice positioning statement. We like it.
Yeah,
even though it might be.
It doesn't have to. It's like Twitter. It doesn't have to be true.
Easy, Sally. Easy.
And let's see. We've got college football tonight. South Florida and Illinois playing down in Tampa.
Such a turd of a game, Corn. It's ugly. It's worse than the NFL game last night.
Why would you say that?
It's bad.
What happened was they got a little sluggish because they had a 40-minute lightning delay.
Why can I not hear pro? There we go.
Yeah, they had a 40-minute lightning delay, and so they started late. I think they warmed up, wanted to get out there and play. Got cold in the locker room, but I suspect South Florida is going to run away with this.
They should win.
And Deshaun Watson last night, not unbelievable statistics, but an unbelievable 49-yard touchdown run.
That game was a turd too, Corn.
Well, all Thursday night games are that way because they make those guys play on Thursday night. They have not physically recovered from Sunday. But I was just happy to see him get up after he was hit by Geno Atkins early in the game where the ball and everything else left the ground.
Nice win for them.
Yes, very nice indeed. And Clowney showed off his Clowney skills with that scooping, not score, but scooping nice run.
Watch out.
That will do it.
Watch out for the horses in Kentucky there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and on our website at the games tomorrow. We'll see you next week. I forgot to really promote our coverage. Pat Gummit. Okie dokie. Let me know, and I'll give you the recruiting to put up, and then we can